One of the most horrifying kidnapping cases in years broke earlier this week in Cleveland, Ohio, where a man is charged with holding 3 women captive for a decade. But out of that horror, some found humor in would-be rescuer Charles Ramsey.
The story is as stunning as it is horrific.
3 women missing and feared dead had been inside a Cleveland, Ohio home for as long as a decade.
Where a 52-year-old man and his brothers are now suspected of a monstrous crime.
Add to the mix a character like Charles Ramsey.
It was neighbor Charles Ramsey who first saw Barry screaming for help as she struggled to get out the front door.
Ramsey proved both colorful and highly quotable.
Bro, I knew something was wrong when a little pretty white girl ran into a black man's arms.
Riffs like that made Ramsey a media sensation. Some of it serious, like this riveting interview with Anderson Cooper.
I've been trapped in here, and he won't let me out. It's me and my baby.
But much of it not so serious. On morning shows, on Twitter, and even YouTube.
Because we see this dude every day. We eat ribs with this dude.
So considering the horrific nature of the story, why do we find Charles Ramsey funny? Tampa Bay Times critic Eric Deggans doesn't fault reporters for initially seeking Ramsey out.
He was the one person who was available to talk about this, and he talked about it in a way that was compelling.
But he also agrees with critics who say the fixation on Ramsey may be due to stereotypes about poor urban blacks.
But you have to wonder, is part of it because Charles Ramsey sort of plays into this stereotype? And again, it just shows how I think journalists have to be careful about how they present this guy.
It may be too late for that. Ramsey's 15 minutes of fame is pretty much up.
You know, I can tell you how our newsroom reacted to this, which was people were, you've got to see this guy. I mean, everybody gathered around, and more than once he said, you got to listen to it. And then people were quoting him and things like that. But one of the things that we pointed out right away was he was one of the most descriptive, articulate, focused eyewitnesses I've ever heard. And he told the story over and over again exactly the same way. So part of it was, yeah, he was colorful and he had some asides, like I was on my day off and doing nothing naturally. And some of that was amusing. But he was being very honest in a moment of, passion. And he had witnessed something very dramatic. And also, to the poor urban black thing, he was troubled by the fact that he felt like he didn't feel 911 responded to him appropriately. He was funny on that. He said to Anderson Cooper, they were morons, both of them, both one that Amanda Berry spoke to and the one he spoke to. So he was passionate in the moment, and if it brought a smile to people's faces, I guess I felt I understood why that happened.
Okay, since I'm the voice of Black America, or I play one on TV, let me answer that. He was absolutely, from a journalist standpoint, because I am that too, he's a great witness. No problem with that. But there's a couple things that have come out since then that need to be noted. I'm not talking about his personal history, which we can talk about as well, but there was actually another person who also arrived on the scene right away, or along with him. His name is Angel Cordero. He only speaks Spanish. This speaks to journalism's narrow focus so they never talked to him because nobody on the scene spoke Spanish.
Well, he did speak to a Spanish language outlet. But
my point to you is that he was available. So it's not true there was the only witness there. And that, to me, is a huge failing of journalists on the scene. You have another witness there. You did not employ everything that you should have to make sure you got everything that you needed. Now, having said that, that doesn't stop Charles Ramsey from being very colorful, very articulate, saying the same thing over and over again, which we love as journalists, because we can edit that thing all day long. But he made a devastating statement about race and politics in his descriptive, which was taken as humor. The fact that a little white, pretty black girl ran into a black man's arms, at that point in the interview, the TV reporter laughed and walked away.
Well, the black reporter was uncomfortable when he said that.
I know. This is my point.
It's a nervous laugh.
And I will say to you that except for auto-tune picking that up and playing that line over and over again to fit whatever somebody's amusement, the fact of that statement not being put in the entire context of this story and who he was and who those girls were and what happened there is really not, we didn't do our job as journalists. So you've left half the story. Now, let me say, having said that, I'm talking about the coverage. There are many, many layers of other kind of cultural disconnections here, societal issues that need to be talked about. And we're going to take it deeper on Basic Black tonight because I can't do that in this context. But on some ways, this is a failing of journalism on a few very key points. And while making him the easy centerpiece for your pieces, and to the amusement of a lot of people who thought, oh, isn't he just a funny guy who doesn't make much money? And we are very, by the way, journalists, uncomfortable with low-income people as well. There's a class issue going on here. It's screaming at us. We didn't deal with that either.
I think this is a synthesis of a lot of things. I mean, he was an excellent storyteller. You know, the ideal guest is somebody who speaks in specifics, not in generalities. And when he talks about ribs and salsa music, that's what he does, right? He paints a picture. So this guy was a natural storyteller. That's one thing. The other thing is he's from a very poor part of Cleveland, and all of a sudden, I'm sure he has never gotten much attention in his life. You know, this kind of, you've seen like thousands of people descending upon him. And all of a sudden, you know, the whole media universe centers around him. So I'm sure he was very excited about the possibility of, you know, getting an opportunity to be famous for a bit, and who knows what that would lead to. So I think there was a lot of things going on. I do think there was a race issue here, but I also think there's probably other people, you know, white people who live in trailer parks, where if they had said some of the kinds of things he said, not exactly that, but something that people thought was, oh, this is quotable, they would have caught on for 15 minutes too.
Well, I don't know about that. I think that there's a real race thing going on here, and it made me extremely uncomfortable. Not Charles Ramsey's interviews, but the reaction to them. It seems to me that on the part of, there's at least within the media, there's a sense that mainstream white America is going to be so shocked to see a low-income African-American guy who is, you know, intelligent, speaking about this so articulately, and all of this, that we're just really going to have fun with him. And I can't really say much more than that, except that it made me very uncomfortable.
I don't think anybody really made fun of him. I mean,
the auto-tuning?
Well, that's...
No. This is, I need to say, this is a pattern. No. This is a pattern. It's not just, he's like the last person, before it was Antoine Dotson, whose sister he prevented from being raped. And they picked up a line of his, auto-tuned it, and went all out. Everything is so funny. He was actually talking about something very serious. He got propped up as some kind of weirdness.
That's not some mainstream media doing that.
No, it was. It was all over.
Not this, not auto-tune.
Yeah, all I'm saying is it got picked up by mainstream media, and that led back to what Dan is saying.
Yeah, it was vulgar. I mean, and I don't doubt there's a racial element to that. Although, you know, Honey Boo Boo has her own show. That's some kind of exploitation as well.
But nobody watches that.
Well, actually, it's very, very popular. I would add, believe it or not, just quickly, that this is a TV-specific issue, particularly when you're going live. The initial interview with Mr. Ramsey was a live interview. And there, you know, you don't have the opportunity to step back and say, wait a minute, that was a lively interview, but do I believe what he was saying? Was he a credible witness? By putting it out there, am I playing into some kind of racial stereotype? Those are questions you can consider when you're not live. And believe me, there are many times when an man on the street interview hits the cutting room floor for a range of reasons, hopefully including some kind of sensitivity to what you're saying about a broader community by including it.
Cleveland is one of the top 10 most segregated cities in America. That was a local reporter. Yeah. For him to laugh and turn away when he says it's a dead giveaway that a pretty little white girl would run into a black man's arms is just not journalism. You lost half the story right there. That was a piece of the story.
He could have pursued that.
Absolutely. Yeah.